My husband was generous, and he also had the gift of discernment. After 45 years of marriage, I was trying to think of what story to share about his giving, and I thought, well, I'll go back to the earliest that I can remember. We hadn't been married but maybe a year. He had a gas station, ran it by himself, and I'd never been there at closing, but one particular day that he was in the Bay Area with his brother, Jim, and I think they were working on a race car. I didn't really have anything to do, so I thought, well, I'll go to the register and get the money ready for the bank deposit. Well, when I lifted the tray up to get the larger bills, there were a couple watches and some rings, and I was going through it, looking at it, thinking, well, none of this is worth anything. And Truett walked in, and he had this big smile on his face, and he said, "Those are payments." Anyway, come to find out, one man ran out of gas, and he was on his way to work, so Truett helped him with that, and then another person had a flat tire, and he helped him. So he was just eager to help.
We've seen the men of Calvary Baptist Church reaching out to the community in many ways. Here's just a few of them. Working the concession stand during football games. Organizing a community skeet shoot to get the men involved. There was a time that a family's home got torn up by a tornado, and they spent nearly all day going out and helping them pack things up and move things and getting things cleaned up. The men helping out at VBS, which is a big deal. Our kids need to see men involved in the church.
Truett came from a large family. His mother always went to church, and his father never went to church. I believe when the kids became school age, they had a choice. And I know Truett knew some basic Bible stories that you learn when you're real young. After he became a Christian, he was a completely different person as far as loving God and wanting to having an extreme desire to learn God's Word. He talked to everyone. He read the Bible. He searched out anyone and everyone, books, but it just wasn't enough. He couldn't get enough, and it made me feel ashamed. I never had that desire. I had been in church all my life, probably witnessed hundreds of testimonies, but never heard one where someone had such a desire for knowledge of the Bible. Well, we were shopping one Sunday looking for a church, and we saw this old frame house with a handmade sign out front, and it said Townie's Bible Church. So we thought, well, we'll try this church. And we did. We went in, and there was no sermon. It was a 2-hour intense Bible study. It was just what Truett needed and wanted. Ended up, we found out that all the men were seminary students with their families, and they started their own church, and they just took turns teaching on Sunday. Well, they were eager to teach Truett, and he was, so like a sponge. And so it was like he had 5 seminary mentors helping him. Eventually, all of the seminary men graduated, and they went their separate ways, so the church closed. Truett kept his nighttime job and took some seminary courses in the day.
One of our men was coming out of the hospital and noticed a young man sitting in his truck crying, and he went over to check on him and see if there was anything he could do, to find out that the young man had just lost their newborn baby. And he took the time to stay with him and to pray with him and let him know how much God loved him. There was a man that was confined to a wheelchair, and they took the time to help the man get in and out of the swimming pool so that he could be baptized. One of our men repaired brakes on a truck for someone.
If I were to title this story on my husband, it would probably be, "It's better to receive than to give." He was always on the giving end, but not on the receiving. One particular time in our marriage, his company completely closed up. I believe it was chapter 11 or 13, but everything froze. Our profit sharing, even his paychecks bounced. So, I mean, all of a sudden overnight we were in debt and we had paid bills that the checks were going to bounce. But anyway, my paycheck wasn't enough to pay all the bills, and we were using credit cards, which sort of saved us for a while there. But people started hearing about our situation. One particular family member gave us a large amount of money, and I'll never forget how mad he was, Truett, about that money and having to, or us needing to accept it. And I just remember he was saying, we're paying it all back. We're going to pay all of this money back. And he just had a hard time humbling himself. I mean, we did, and he accepted it. But I think God put that humbling experience in his life so that to the extent of understanding what it is and how you have to humble yourself when you do need charity.
Someone donated money to help someone pay for college tuition. Passing out pies to invite people to church and try to encourage them to come. There was one time when people were out of town and their pasture fence got torn down, and they went out and replaced it and fixed the fence to protect their livestock. These are just a few of the things that I know about, that I've seen, and I just want to say men are amazing and just encourage you to keep it up.